Hello everyone, welcome back. Today, let us see the second part of the chapter, The Portrait of a Lady. As the years rolled by, we saw less of each other. For some time, she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. I would tell her English words and tell things of Western science and learning, the law of gravity, Archimedes principle, the world being round, etc. Now, this part talks about the life that the author and his grandmother had when they went to city. And the author's parents called them to the city. So the whole life of the author when he was a child was changed. We have seen the previous part. How was the life of the author and his grandmother when they were in the village? But now, as they went into the city, for some time, grandmother used to wake the author and get ready for school. And when author used to come back from school, she used to ask what the teacher has taught, and he used to tell everything in English. Some Western science, learning, law of gravity, Archimedes principle, science, the world is round, etc. These things did not make grandmother happy. She used to get upset. Sorry. This made her unhappy. She could not help me with my lessons. She did not believe in the things that they taught at the English school when I was distressed that there was no teaching about God and the scriptures. Grandmother was not happy. Why? Because first of all, she could not able to help the child in his lessons because she did not understand science. She did not know English. And second, she did not believe in the things that the school English school was not teaching anything about God and the scriptures. According to grandmother, teaching of God and the scripture is very important. So when the child was in the village school, he was taught God's things, scripture readings. So grandmother was happy. But in the city school, in the new English school, the child is not taught anything about God and the scripture, and that is why the grandmother is unhappy. One day, I announced that we were being given music lessons. She was very disturbed. To her, music had lived associations. It was the monopoly of harlots and beggars and not meant for gentlefolk. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval. She rarely talked to me after that. One day it so happened that the child told his grandmother that their school had taught them some music lessons. When the child told this about music lesson to his grandmother, the grandmother was disturbed. Why? Because according to the grandmother, she said that music had lived associations, means music had no connections with the child, with the student. Means student and music had very long relation, associations, no connection. Music is the monopoly of harlots and beggars. Now, according to grandmother, she said that music is connected with harlots. Harlots means uh, the bad people, the bad women who do bad work. They are called as harlots and beggars. So, according to grandmother, she says that music is connected with harlots and beggars, and it is not meant for gentlefolk. Gentlefolk means music is not made for good people, gentle people, nice people. After this, grandmother did not say anything. She just kept quiet, and her silence meant disapproval. After that, she rarely talked to the child. Then, after a few years, the author went to the university to complete his higher education. Let us see the next part. When I went up to university, I was given a room of my own. The common link of friendship was snapped. My grandmother accepted her seclusion with resignation. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone. Now, when the author went to university to complete his education, he was given a room of his own at the university. And the link of friendship between him and his grandmother was snapped, was disturbed, was broken. Now, grandmother became completely alone at the house. As long as author was living at house, they both were closely attached with each other. But the moment he went to the university, grandmother became alone. So she accepted her seclusion with resignation. Seclusion means loneliness, the one who stays alone. So grandmother accepted her seclusion, means she accepted that she has to stay alone now. She has to live alone. No matter author's parents were living in the house, but they would be busy in their official work, and they had no time to spend with grandmother. That's why grandmother started believing that she is alone now, and she accepted this fact. And then she started spinning the wheel. Talk means she was making herself busy in the work of spinning wheel. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her wheel, spinning and reciting prayers. So from morning till evening, she used to sit she used to sit by her wheel, spinning and saying the prayer of Lord, praying to their God. Spinning the wheel means moving the wheel round and round, and reciting prayers of God from morning till evening. Only in the afternoon, she relaxed for a while to feed the sparrows. So in the afternoon time, she used to spare herself, means she used to get relaxed for much few time. And in the afternoon time, she used to feed the sparrows. Some sparrows used to come in her courtyard, in her veranda. So she used to feed them. While she sat in the veranda means the front yard of the house, courtyard of the house. While she sat in the veranda breaking the bread into little bits, hundreds of little birds collected round her, creating a veritable bedlam of chirrupings. Now in the afternoon time, when grandmother used to sit in the veranda, she used to break bread into small bits, small pieces, and she used to make small pieces and used to feed hundreds of little birds. And these birds, when they used to come near grandmother, they used to gather her. Means grandmother used to sit in between, and all these birds, they used to make a circle around her, and they used to make lot of noise, lot of chaos, noise of their chirrupings, noise of their sound. That is called as a veritable bedlam of chirruping. You can see this expression over here, a veritable bedlam of chirruping. Means this expression means that the birds used to make lot of noise and lot of sound, chaos by their voice. Some came and perched on her legs, others on her shoulders, some even sat on her head. She smiled but never shooed them away. It used to be the happiest half hour of the day for her. Some birds used to come and sit on her legs, some birds used to sit on her shoulders, some used to sit on her head, but she never shooed them. She never made them fly away. She never said anything. So this moment was the happiest moment of her life after the authors when he went to university. So half hour of the day was the happiest hour for her. Now author finished his studies and he decided to go abroad for further studies now. So far he is in the university and he is staying in the university campus. But now again he decided to go for further studies abroad, foreign country. Now what will happen? Let us see. When I decided to go abroad for further studies, I was sure my grandmother would be upset. I would be away for 5 years, and at her age, one could never tell. When author decided to go for abroad for further studies, he was very much sure that grandmother will be upset when he will tell her about his plan. He will have to stay abroad for 5 years, and when he sees the age of her grandmother, one could not tell her. At her age, one could never tell. Means by seeing his grandmother's age, nobody can tell what could be the future, what will happen to her. But my grandmother could. She was not even sentimental. But when finally he told his grandmother that he is going abroad for 5 years, first he thought maybe grandmother would cry, she would become upset, she would not allow him to go. But all these things did not happen. She did not become sentimental. She did not become emotional. Sentimental means emotional. On the contrary, what happened? She came to leave me at the railway station but did not talk or show any emotion. Grandmother went with the author to drop him to the railway station, but she did not speak anything. She did not show any emotion. She was very quiet. Her lips moved in prayer. Her mind was lost in prayer. She was just continuously reciting prayer. In her mind, prayer was going on. Her lips were reciting prayer. Her fingers were busy telling the beads of her rosary. On the railway station also, she carried her beads of rosary and she was telling the beads, means the moti ki mala. She was telling the beads of rosary and she was speaking the prayer silently. Silently, she kissed my forehead, and when I left, I cherished the moist imprint as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between us. And then finally, grandmother kissed the forehead of the author, and when they left each other, when the author touched his forehead, he could see the moist imprint. Moist imprint means when his grandmother kissed him on the forehead, he could find the moist imprint. Moist imprint means you can say the grandmother's saliva was, no, it, when she kissed him on his forehead, the grandmother's saliva came on the forehead, and he could feel the moist imprint of his grandmother, and that was the last physical contact between him and his grandmother. But that was not so. After 5 years, I came back home and was met by her at the station. She did not look a day older. She still had no time for words, and while she clasped me in her arms, I could hear her reciting her prayers. After 5 years, when author completed his studies, when he came back, he found out that his grandmother looks the same. She did not look a day older. Means before 5 years when he left, that time how she was looking, the same appearance was there today also when he came back to his place after 5 years. But when he went near his grandmother, when she clasped him, clasped matlab, when she hugged him, she did not say anything. Author heard that she is reciting prayer. Means every time she was reciting her God's prayer. So she hugged author, and author could hear from her mouth that she is telling the prayer, she is reciting the prayer. On the first day of my arrival, her happiest moments were with her sparrows, whom she fed longer and with frivolous rebukes. Now, on the first day when author came back home, he found out that his grandmother had been feeding the sparrows for a long time. And for this many years, she had been feeding with frivolous rebuke. If you see this expression, frivolous rebuke, means she was feeding the sparrows but with criticizing. Means she had some anger in her. She had some disturbance in her. She was not happy for this many years. So she used to feed these birds by criticizing them. But the birds could not understood. The birds could not understand. Right? They are birds. So grandmother used to feed them. She did not stop giving food, pieces of bread to the birds. She used to feed regularly, but with frivolous rebukes, criticizing. In the evening, a change came over her. She did not pray. Now, same evening, something happened. What is that? Let us see. On that evening, a change came over his grandmother. Every day she used to pray to God. As we have seen, every time she was praying to her God. But today evening, she did not pray. What did she do? She collected the women of the neighborhood, got an old drum and started to sing. She called all the women of the neighborhood and she got one old drum, and started singing and playing drum. For several hours, she thumped the saging skin of the dilapidated drum and sang of the homecoming of warriors. Now she took the drum and started singing song by thumping the saging skin of the dilapidated drum. Means the drum skin was moving. Moving means maybe it would have been broken. It was very loose. The drum skin should be tight so that you can hear the sound properly, music properly. But here the skin must have been loose. So she was thumping on the drum from both the sides, and she was singing the song of the homecoming of warrior. Means her grandson has returned home. So she was singing song for him. She was singing very loudly. She was thumping at the drum also very hardly. We had to pursue her to stop to avoid overstraining. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. Finally, the whole family had to pursue her. Means they had to go and request her to stop singing the song and to stop playing the drum to avoid overstraining, because the family was afraid. Maybe her age is also very much. If she keep on singing so long, if she keep on playing the drum for so long, she may get sick. Something may happen to her. And that was the first time author noticed that his grandmother has not prayed to God. And the next morning, something happened to her. The next morning, she was taken ill. It was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go. But my grandmother thought differently. She told us that her end was near. She said that since only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life, she had omitted to pray. She was not going to waste any more time talking to us. Next morning, she became ill. She got mild fever, and doctor told the fever will go away. But the grandmother has some different thoughts today. Grandmother told everybody that her last time has come. The end of her life has come. She says that only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life, she had omitted to pray. Now she doesn't want to waste her time. She wants to pray. For the whole life, she had been praying to God. And today, as it is the last day or it is the last hour of her life, she doesn't want to waste it. She wants to continue praying to God. So, what did she do? She started telling the beads of rosary and praying to God in her bed. We protested, but she ignored our protest. She lay peacefully in bed praying and telling her beads. Even before we could suspect, her lips stopped moving and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. A peaceful pallor spread on her face and we knew that she was dead. Now the family members protested. They said no to grandmother. They said no, that she should not sit, she should not pray, or she should not tell her beads of rosary now. It is not a good condition. She did not listen. She started praying in her bed. She started telling the beads of rosary. And after some time, before the family could notice what happened, her lips stopped moving and the beads of rosary fell from her fingers. Beads of rosary, moti ki mala. It fell from her lifeless fingers and a peaceful pallor spread on her face. Means a peaceful pallor means there was a complete silence spread on her face and everybody came to know that she has died. We lifted her off the bed and, as is customary, laid her on the ground and covered her with a red shroud. Now, as she was dead, the whole family lifted her from the bed and, according to the custom of the family, they brought her on the ground. They kept her dead body on the ground and they covered her dead body with a red color shroud, red color cloth. After a few hours of mourning means all the family members, they started expressing their grief, expressing their sorrow, showing their sadness by crying. That is called mourning. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. After some times of mourning, they left her dead body and they all went here and there to make arrangement for her funeral service. Funeral means the final cremation. according to the religion. They have to do the final ceremony or the final cremation of the dead body. In Hindus, they burn it, right? In Christianity, they bury it in the ground. Like that, according to the system, culture, the family members went here and there for the arrangement. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher to take her to be cremated. In the evening time, the whole family members, when they went into the room with a stretcher, crude stretcher means a wooden platform where they could put her dead body and they can carry her to the cremated. To be cremated means for the last service of like funeral, burning her body. They put her on the stretcher so that they can cremate her. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. It was the sunset time. The whole room and veranda was lit up by the golden light of the sunlight, sun rays, evening time. We stopped halfway in the courtyard, all over the veranda and in her room, right up to where she lay dead and stiff, wrapped in the red shroud. Thousands of sparrows sat scattered on the floor. Now, when they came out of the room, and when they came in the courtyard halfway, all over the veranda and everywhere in her room, where she was lying dead, thousands of sparrows were sitting on the floor in the veranda. So many sparrows had come today. There was no chirruping today. There is no sound today. The birds are not making any sound. Every day the bird used to make lot of noise, chaos, lot of sound when she used to feed them. When she used to feed birds small pieces of bread. But today the birds are not making any sound. There was no chirruping. There was no noise of the birds. All the birds are very quiet. We felt sorry for the birds and my mother fetched some bread for them. She broke it into little crumbs the way my grandmother used to and threw it to them. Now, when everybody saw that the birds are sitting, they felt sorry because birds must have been waiting for grandmother, but today grandmother cannot come. So author's mother brought some bread and she broke it into little crumbs. Crumbs meant small pieces. She broke it into small pieces and she started feeding to birds. How the grandmother used to feed. She threw it to the birds. But the birds, the sparrows, they did not see the bread. The sparrows took no notice of the bread. Sparrows did not see. When we carried my grandmother's corpse off, they flew away quietly. So when the family members started carrying her grandmother's corpse means dead body, all the sparrows, all the birds flew away. And next morning, the sweeper swept the breadcrumbs into the dustbin. Sweeper came next morning and he swept all the small pieces of bread into the dustbin. And by this, the story is over. Thank you.